Right, a video for boxers. This is a video on basic putting using Lion's pace and dot counting sheet. Um, did a little tutorial yesterday with a couple of new guys, but a couple missed it, and we have quite a few new players, so they may not be familiar with this sheet and how to use it. So I'm going to go back through it so people can um, relate to it as they're learning, maybe change systems, etc. So I am just practicing at Wolf Creek. Obviously, I somehow managed to put it here um, by accident. So I'll be moving that putt slightly so that we get a better putt to start with. Hopefully you'll do 3 or 4 putts, and I'm going to break them down in detail and take quite a long time over them. So won't be doing many putts, but we'll be doing them in detail. As usual with these things, there's nothing to say the putt's going to go in. All I'm trying to show is the method, and really the method works beautifully for if you do it right and consider the variables and count correctly. It will drastically improve your putting. You won't 3-putt anymore, and you'll always be there or thereabouts the hole. Even if they don't go in, it just means we're playing the numbers, and it means more putts are going to go in. It can be frustrating sometimes because you're a lot closer than if you just feel putt, because they're obviously so close a lot of the time. So you're constantly thinking, "Oh, why didn't it do that?" or "Why didn't it do this?" But that's just the situation of getting closer more often. So going through this sheet, we're going to ignore this. This is the wind calculation for yards into headwinds and tailwinds. We're going to ignore this, which is the mapping input sheet to work alongside the wind and the yards to calculate what club to use and what spin to use. So we're going to be focusing just on this. So going through this sheet, we've got 4 boxes that require input. And then we're going to use this green box, add power of 3% as our power pretty much all the time. So the boxes are 12 green speed we enter here. I think it's 12 here. It is. So we're happy with that. And then we're going to put in the distance of feet, the elevation change. So is it uphill or downhill? And then finally, we're going to put in the dot count of the break. The first thing to explain here is that this pace that we're calculating in these 2 boxes here is designed to fit with this. So if you try to stick to your own pace of putting, which might be firmer or weaker, it can't be weaker really because ours is dead weight. But if you putt firmer, unless you decide to fiddle with the formula yourself, the dots won't work because the dots are formulated to work to a dead weight pace, which is what we're calculating here. So if you want to use this, you should jump all in and use all of it, not just a piece of it. That said, we're not always going to be using the dot count. So there are times where we'll use the dot count a little bit, all of it, not at all. When we use it not at all, i.e. there's not much break, or it's uphill and it's right edge and counting is too fiddly or it's too slow, then you can change your pace and hit it a bit firmer. So I'll often, if it's a right edge putt from 10 feet uphill, just completely ignore the dots, set my aim up to be aggressive, and then hit it harder than the sheet will say. So we'll try and find one of those along the way. So let's try and find ourselves a putt first. What should we give ourselves? I don't know, we'll just hit this somewhere down here. I don't really care how far it is. Again, we're not worried about holding these putts at this stage, we just want to show the method. So this is a nice putt to start with because we've got fairly even dots. There's obviously a rogue dot here. But generally speaking, they're pretty level speed. So this should be relatively easy to calculate. I'm expecting this putt to be either in or hitting one side of the lip or the other. To be very close, basically. So the first thing to explain here is the grids. So I'm just going to get this out of the way first and then do the process afterwards. The grids can be friendly, like this. This is a friendly grid because you've got one box going exactly where you're going to be aiming it. If you see this box here, these dots are different, and this box here, these dots are different. So if the line of the grids happen to be down here, we'd straight away have a problem of having to decide which grid to use, or whether to do this, hold it down to get an average of two grids. We'll explain more about that later. So let's go through the process. So the process is, you do the numbers first, 11.7 and 3.1 uphill. We've got our 12 green, 11.7, 3.1 uphill. So our putt is 11.8 before adding any variables into it. There aren't that many variables, but just to make that clear that that's a sort of early assessment of how we want to hit it. The reason I do that first is because it decides for me what type of putt we're going to hit, using the dots, not using the dots, etc. So very clearly here, as I said before, we've got some nice dots. It's going to be far more sensible to use these dots than it is just to feel it, because I'm going to hole more putts by doing it because it works better than my feel does. And I think I'm a pretty good feel putter. So if you want to get better at putting, this is definitely a route to do it. So the process is, take the pin out, 1. Move the aim out of the way, 2. So you've got a nice clear visual of what we're trying to do with these dots. Now, what we're trying to calculate with this box is a full box to work out how long the dots travel on average across the entirety of the box. Now we can't do that across the whole box because they start at half a box. Every time you click this, they'll reset. But they don't reset for the whole box, only half. So what we're doing is we're counting from there and then we're doubling it. Hence it says here, dot speed 2 times full box. So we go back to the putt. And so this box basically can do 2 things. It can give you an average of the grids, like I said before, and it can reset the dots. So our first job here is to count the dots. Now what we're trying to do here is replicate a dot count for how many seconds it takes to cross this half a box. Now using a stopwatch is nailed on for the dot count. You can choose to do that. I choose not to. I use Mississippi 1. I don't know why. I just find it a bit silly looking at a stopwatch to be playing a game. You could argue the same about a spreadsheet, but you can use a stopwatch if you want. If your dot count's out and you're not sure, it's definitely worth timing it. But if you do click a stopwatch on your phone and count out the numbers like Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, you can pretty much nail on what the seconds are for it to cross the box. Obviously, the longer it takes them to cross the box, the more important your count is, because the longer it is that you're going. If you're wrong for 5 seconds, you're going to be more wrong for 10 seconds. So we click it again just to see our dots, and straight away my first thing is I can see that they're quite consistent, but we've got a couple of different speeds. So I'm now going to count the dots. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6. Now the initial read there straight away is that we've got 4, 5s and 6s. So it would be very easy just to plug in 5 here, but we need to be more thorough than that. So I'm going to do it again. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6. I'm going to do it once more. My mouth wasn't working very well there. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6. So there's only one that was close to 4, but it actually wasn't 4. The majority of them are 5, and then there was a couple lagging behind. So this is the 4 and a bit. This is the 5, and then there's 3 lagging behind at 6. So I'm looking at about 5 here. You might think maths-wise that it might be a bit higher than 5 because there were more 6s than there were the nearly 4s. But the first thing to share here is a negative. There's 2 things to share. One is never use this dot counting system for a putt that is, say, best way to say it is for less than 3.5, 3.7 foot power putt. The reason for that is, and I'll do it by pointing here instead. There you go. This is 5.5 to 2.1 to get to here. This is going to tell us to hit this about 2 feet. Now, if there's a heavy break on this and we hit it 2 feet, the ball is moving so slowly that the break is going to have significantly more effect than it would in normal circumstances. So basically what happens is the maths gets broken. We're still working on it, and I know Lion's trying to sort of find a way around it, or maybe a secondary count box to deal with those types of putts. But these numbers, this putt wouldn't work. So that's the first no-no, is if you've got a putt similar to this that adds up to sort of downhill breaking less than 3.75 feet, 3.5, 3.75, don't dot count, do it by feel. You can still dot count to start with and then put your feel into it, but just remember, if you were doing the count for that putt, whatever the count is telling you, you're going to have to allow more break because the ball is moving so slowly. So that's no-no 1. Now I've forgotten what no-no 2 is. Sorry, no-no 2 is, sorry, it's not really a no-no. I find that on big breaking putts, particularly downhill, I'm going to ignore it on this because it's uphill, but on big breaking putts downhill, you're always better to go with the higher speed dot count than you are the lower. And I don't think it's actually the math that is wrong there. What it is that if this was a downhill breaking putt coming in here, if you overcount, i.e. you go more on the 4s than you do on the 6s, I call it an overread of the dots, the ball is coming in from here. So you might have overread it, but you've still got a big chance of holding it because you're coming right in to the centre of the hole. If you underread it, if I say went to 6s here or 5.5, it's going to turn earlier, and you're basically, to get lucky, if your count is slightly out, you're going to have to hit the corner of this hole and sneak it in the side door. So that's why I believe it might be that, it might be the math, it might be a little bit of both. But for downhill breaking putts, I would generally go with the faster dot if you're in between minds. So my mind at the moment on this one is I'm sort of a 4, mostly 5s and a couple of 6s. My mind would tell me to go 5.25, let's say. If this was a downhill putt, I'd be leaning more at 5 or 4.75. We'll show that as we get a downhill putt. So I'm going to set myself here as, I'm not going to count them again, I think we know what we're doing. So 4.25-ish, 5s and 6s. I'm going to go at 5.25 to start with. Now this is again a an initial starting point. So 5.5 times 2 is, sorry, 5.25 times 2 is 10.5. So we put in the dot count of 10.5, and down here it tells us that it's a break of 7.9 inches. The box is a foot, so 12 inches. But I don't worry about that. I just follow this, the percentage. So we're looking at 66% of a box. Okay. The other thing this box can do for you is help you measure. Because it sticks when you hold the box. So the way to do the measurement, and this is again is going to require some feel and some skill on your behalf, is that whenever you move it, it's always in the middle of a box, which means that is 50%. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We're right in the middle of the box. If this box is 100% in total going across it, then obviously we're in the middle always, as you can see. Therefore, that is 50%. So we're looking for 16% more than that. Now, what I know is that, and this will come by feel, is you just have to look at that box and break it into, I'm going to release it just for the sake of this, and break it into tens. So 10% of this box is probably about there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so a bit smaller than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-ish. So we know that sort of moving it from, on this 50%, moving it sort of there is 10%. That's how I do it. And I'm going to move it a little bit more for the extra 6%. Then you can look at the entirety of it. So we're not looking at the cup here because the line is outside it. What I'm looking to see is 66% is obviously 2/3 of the distance here across. So if we're working out thirds here, we've got 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So 66% looks pretty good there. The only thing is the cup is slightly outside of this line. I'm just going to go back to this again. So I'm pretty happy that that's about 66%. We know that's 50. And then 10, all right, maybe just a little more. See what I'm looking at? I can't move the mouse because I'm clicking the box. But I'm looking at the line near the hole, so I know that that's 50%, and then we've got another sort of 10 and a bit percent to the middle of the cup. I might just go a tad more. So this is our initial read. This is our power and our dot count broken into two pieces working together. And we're looking from this side to that side. Uphill, the maths does this on the sheet for you, but uphill, when you're visualizing whether this is right or wrong, is going to turn less than it is downhill. If this was a downhill putt, the sheet would be telling us to aim more over here, and we'd be visualizing it like that. So I'm looking at this putt thinking, pretty much, is it going to turn this much when I'm hitting it 11.8 foot uphill? And my gut feeling is straight away, and this is what happens when you get used to it. I think I'm quite good at this, so we might all have different skill levels of it. My read there is that this is too much break. Because it's uphill, I just can't see it breaking early enough at 11.8. I feel like it's going to sort of miss here. I'm looking at the wind. Wind can make a difference. We won't be looking at this on this putt here. We've got a slight headwind. But it's not big enough to worry us. So I'm just looking at this thinking from both sides. From here it looks a bit better. 11.8. Sort of feel on that it's pretty good. Yeah, the dots are moving quite quick. I might be wrong here. I think the count may be correct. So I might just hit this as an exercise and see how good my gut is against the maths. My gut says we might miss this left edge. I don't think there's any chance that we're going to miss it this side. I could be wrong. We've all made mistakes. It's evening here. My eyes aren't working perfectly. So I'm going to go with the initial calculation. Now, one last thing to bear in mind. We've just moved this uphill. If you can see, I'm not going to move it back because I like my aim. Our sheet where we entered before is 3.1 inches. And here we're 3.4 inches. So that's 0.3 inches more uphill. And being that we're hitting at dead weight, you could argue here just to hit it a little bit harder than 11.8. Not 12, probably just under 12. My only concern with that is if I'm hitting this harder and I'm already worried about missing it this side, I'm adding more power, it's more likely to miss this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 11.9 and I'm just going to budge it in a little bit. And let's see how we get on. So I'm going to hit 11.9. We've got all our other details in. There's nothing else to think about. It's just go. Right, so last thing. Last thing is using the bigger meter to slow your ding down. This is something Echot Ian was asking me earlier. A couple of people on the stream yesterday didn't know about it either. But you can slow the meter down by using the higher meter. The reason for that is the lower you hit the putt on the meter, the slower the meter is. I'll give you an example. If I wanted to hit this, the 11 feet that we're talking about, I can't remember where it is on here, but let's just say it was there. Watch the meter speed. It's really quite fast. If I want to hit 12 on here, it's this line. Watch the meter speed. Slower. You might not have noticed that much difference, but you will in a minute. Now, if I want to try 12 on here, we know that 10% is 6, so 2 of them is 12. Now watch the meter. Really slow. And finally, we wouldn't use it for this putt because finding 12 on here is quite difficult, but we would use it if we had 10 or 20 or just under 20. 12 on here is 10 plus a little bit. Watch the meter now. You basically can't miss it. So I'm going to do that one more time. Watch the meter. Now watch the meter. You can see it building up speed across the screen. Massive, massive thing. If you're not doing that already, do it. Just be careful. I'm in a bad habit at the moment. My natural thing is, as soon as I set a putt up, because I'm not using the 15 meter very much at the moment, I just immediately click to 30. And then I can find myself thinking, right, I need to hit this 3.7 feet and think I'm hitting the 15 meter, hit here and then power it past. So use the meter accordingly to match up with your putt. So we've talked a lot. Let's hit a putt. 11.8, we said 11.9. Our job now is to hit the ding. So this is 12, so I'm just going to go a tad under it. So my gut instinct was wrong. I still think it would have gone in if I'd moved it a little bit right. But a really good start to see that in action. Don't know if we can get to here, but it doesn't really matter. It'd be quite fun to have a long putt. Doesn't matter if it goes in the bunker. Because I want to show you how good the pace of the numbers is. Beautiful. Oh, I've got apparel on, that's why this driver's going longer. Keep forgetting I'm practicing. Right, so this is not a putt we're looking to hole. At least I wouldn't have been normally. I mean, my longest putt I think I've got in the game is 56 feet. I know lots of people have got 90s and 100s, but I think at that level of putt, there's a lot of luck involved, and I've had lots of scrapes and near misses at 70 feet, but just none of them have dropped. So certainly with how I used to putt with feel, my number one priority was not to 3-putt this. Now I have very little concern about that. This is about as hard as it gets actually for the test of the maths, because it's so violently uphill at one specific point rather than gradual. That does have an effect, because what it'll mean is it's going to lose a lot of momentum up here, but also be quite quick at the start. So this is a good test of the math. I'll be hoping to get it within 2.5 feet still in terms of the distance. So we follow our process, 42.123. So we're talking about a 50.1 foot putt. Which meter are we going to use? We're not going to use this here because it's going to be really quick. We're going to go to there. We could even go to there because we're still hitting half of this. I've never actually used the 150. But we can actually use the 150 here, which I might try and do, and just do it just over that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. So because I'm now not worried about the 3-putting of it, I am trying to hold this. The mentality sort of changes slightly. Obviously, it's a bitch of a putt. It's got multiple breaks into it. Evan, our resident beast, would be down here fiddling around, working out where that's going to go to start with, this right to left. Where's it going to take it to, and then work out the left to right here. Okay, so it needs to be more over there. He'll sort of fathom it out. I can't do that. I don't know why. It might be lack of patience, but I prefer to look at the putt as a whole. I still break it down into pieces. This is clearly right to left. This is clearly left to right. What's worth more? Certainly the left to right is, particularly because it will be going quick here and slower up here. So we can see there's some right to left here. It's not a very good angle, but we can see there's more left to right there. So I know that this is a left to right putt. That's my hunch. It's now sort of gauging. These are really quick. So we're going to get some quite, not violent turn because we're hitting it so hard uphill, but certainly more than this is. So I'm going to go with my hunch here. There's no point in dot counting here to any degree. And I'm thinking that break there is going to take it to probably about here. And then I'm looking for this part here and a bit of the putt to bring it back this way. Now straight away I'm feeling that that's probably not going to come back that far, so I'm going to bring it in slightly. So again, tough putt. More worried about pace than anything else. Looking again here, 50.1. Wind insignificant, so I'm just going to hit this. I might just hit it 50 dead. That is 50, isn't it? No, it's not. My maths is out. What is 50 of this? It's 2/3 of it, right? Right, so it's in between there, so we can't do that. It'll be too messy to try and get 75, 60, 45, so we're somewhere in between here, so that's not going to work. I'm glad I spotted that before I knocked it 20 foot past, or 10 foot short even. So we're back to this, or ooh, look, oh no, 300. Same problem. If it was 200, we could just go a quarter of it. So we're back to our 100 meter, doing 50, and I'm just going to hit it. So I've overread what this did on the slope, and we've actually gone 3.8 foot past. Actually, it's not 3.8 foot past. Let's have a look from down here. we were putting from sort of here-ish. So we're a foot past, just a bad read, basically. There was more early than there was, probably because the dots at the start, there were more grids of those dots, and the quick dots that got me were only 3 boxes. That would be why. But we're certainly not in 3-putt range. We'd be quite confident of holding this. Now, this is where I'm just going to show you very quickly about this maths going wrong. 3.8 minus 1.4, 2.4. If you start reading dots here, you're in trouble, because it's going to take forever. They won't be right, so you can't really do that. So you really should just be finding a way to get these in the hole the best that you can. And the way for me is just to hit it firm. So I can see there's some break there, so I know it's going to move however hard I hit it. So I'm trying to think, do I want to aim outside the hole or inside of the hole, and then sort of match up the pace. So I want to hit this 3 feet. What did it say? 2.4. Actually, I want to hit it 3.75. So it's nice and firm, and it takes out some of this break, but it's still going to break. So I'm going to hit this on this edge, 3.75, I think. Maybe just a little bit more. 15 meter, 3.75. Not going to worry about where we're going here. Not going full spin because it'll spin off the green. What we got? 172, 183 somewhere. We won't allow for wind so that we can finish over here somewhere. 172, 182. I'm just going to hit this and don't worry where it goes. Perfect. So we've got our downhiller. And this is a tough one. So again, I'd be disappointed with the shot, and I'd be thinking, if I hold this, it's a bonus. We do have some positives, which is that these dots are all quite consistent again, relatively speaking. So we're gonna go with our setup, 16.1, 5.5. So we're talking about a 7.3 foot putt. So straight away we're hitting this 7.3. So this is going to be going. We're going to be going. The ball's going to be traveling really slowly. So we've got to be. The sheet will take care of that, but this is one of these putts where I would definitely be allowing a little bit more. And by allowing a little bit more, what I'll probably choose to do is use the faster dots. This is only 9 wind, but it is going that way. So there's another reason for us, if we want to try and find this middle of the hole here, get this big area to hit rather than this small area. The more we overread it, the more likely we are to be coming in from the correct angle. So pin out, move it, and then we're looking at our dots here. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm doing here, because we're going to be crossing 2 grids, because we're going to be aiming somewhere over here. So straight away, I want to know which of these grids is quicker. So I'm just going to click this and watch which ones get there first. It's actually quite even, which is a good thing. So we don't have to worry too much about these, what's the difference between them. We can even do this and find a channel of 1 if we wanted to, but I don't think we need to. This, to me, is, we're going to be aiming over here. So this box here is the most relevant to me. So this is what I'm going to be counting. Now, one other little tip to give you is, if the dots are quicker at the start than at the end, if you don't account for that, the ball will have already got offline, traveling in the wrong direction, much quicker. So the early dots are really important. Just swapping to this side to see what it looks like. It's not a good angle, so I'm going to be ignoring that. So I'm going to count these dots. These ones are getting there first, so I'm just going to, you've got to sort of scroll your eyes across as you go. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4. So we're basically at 3s and 4s. I think there might be even one that's quicker than 3. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3. They're spot on 3 here and then getting towards 4. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 4. So these are more like 4. My gut instinct here is to use 3, and it could even be a bit more than that, a bit more break than that. But we're going to go 3 to start with, and put in 3 times 2 is 6, and this is giving us a 288 box. So this is obviously a lot of break. So, like we know that this is 50%, we also know that that's 150%. And we also know, if I hold this side of the box, that, can I get it there? Oh, this thing's in the way. Yeah, I can pretty much just get it there. Oh shit. So we can see the line is through the hole there, so we know that we're at 250% there, and we said we want 288. It's always much easier to do this, these big breaking parts, by using the other angle because you get a wider view. Why? I don't know. Just physics, I guess. So you can see we've got the 250 there. If we want to go 288, we need to move that more than halfway to the next box. So we've got 1, 2, 275, but that's on the other side of that. Yeah, so we're about 288 there. So you can straight away see that we're having to be slightly vague about some things because of this being such a violent putt. And just, it's basically a violent putt. We're not worried about 3-putting it. I've got no concerns about that. Just checking the downhill here, 3.8. We've allowed 5.5. I'm not worried about that because it's going to be turning down that hill anyway. So there's nothing to adjust power-wise. All we're thinking here is our 3 count going to be enough? So I'm just going to have a little... I can't count again because I've moved the box out. We're hitting at 7.6. I'm fairly convinced that this is one of these classic putts. Heavy break downhill. I feel like it's going to move a lot more than the numbers are telling you. So this is the putts where I feel like the numbers may break down slightly. I'd be interested to hear what Lion has to say about that. We've had chats about it before, and he sort of agrees that when you get this kind of putt, you've got to throw some feel into it. So 7.3, 288. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to miss here. That's my gut. So I always go with my gut instinct, and I'm going to move this another half a box. And it might still not be enough because it's just so violent. Now I'm feeling like it's too much. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So you just learn this by doing it and seeing it, and eventually you absorb how quick these dots are and where you're aiming and how hard you're hitting it. But I'm just going to hit this now at 7.3. 7.3 on this meter. This is 7.5. Take the pin out. So that's 7.5, so I'm just taking a little bit off. Let's see what happens. I thought that was in. So you can see again, hopefully, I'm really pleased with that putt. I'm not pleased because 2 inches out, I was sure it was in. But we're all over the hole in any circumstance, even when it's as violent as that. There's no chance of 3-putting it. Just pleasing to see that it works that well. And that we figured out that had we just gone with the normal count of 3, that was probably faster than the numbers that we had for some of them that were 4, we were right to add on the extra in those circumstances. Well, this is fun. Little thing for you here as well, when you've got drivable greens, it's always good to use the sheet for your numbers. I want to sort of land this. You won't be able to use full backspin. I want to land this sort of there. So I've got 252 and 17 uphill, so I'm going to go back to my sheet. 5 wins. Judge that as sort of 100% without looking at it too hard. So this is telling us we need to hit this 265 yards. Now I can't hit driver here. My 3 wood is about... I think if we sort of go... Oh, hang on, I've got apparel on, haven't I? Interesting. Right, okay. So if that's 260 and the other is 250, this 80% backspin will go 264, and we need 265. Well, that's rather nice. So I'm just going to pop on %20 backspin, and it just gives you a sort of another number to sort of look at and aim and think, where's my landing spot? I'm just going to hit that. I think it might be long. Or not. .9 feet. The classic heartbeat. But it gives us an interesting putt. This is a horrific green for putting. Mr. Key Putt and E-Tour on here. But it looks quite good from a dot count perspective. So, just going to get straight into it. 9.92 uphill. Let's get rid of this. 9.6 foot putt. Do I want to use the dots against feel? Yes, I want to use the dots. If I try and feel this, I'm going to be going, oh, is it here? How hard do I hit it? So we go with the math. 9.6, 2 uphill. Okay, so we move it out of the way. We've got a nice channel here, so we don't need to worry about the boxes. And we start our count. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3. So we've got 3, a 4, and some 5s. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5. They're actually quite inconsistent, so I'm kind of finding it hard to get an average out. There's a 3 point something. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5. It's uphill. There's a just over 3, some 4s and a 5. So I'm thinking 4. 4 is probably our number to start with. So 4 times 2 is 8. Put it in the right box. 79% break. We know that's 50. We're looking for 29 more. A bit more than half of the distance between where I'm aiming and the next grid line. So I'm just visualizing that. And then we get the chance. Luckily, we've got this all the way through the hole here. So we're now seeing, is this 80%? And the answer is, yeah, probably not far off. So that's our kind of dot count as we start. We've got to remember this is uphill, so we're going to be hitting it firmer, so it will turn less on our eyes when we're looking at the dots. The maths takes care of that. Terrible angle here, but this looks very curly from here. I might just bear that in mind slightly. And my hunch is here. Oh, are we hitting it again? 9.6. I think I like it. The reason I think I like it is on one occasion I thought I'm going to miss here, and on another occasion I'm thinking I'm going to miss here. Like thought occasion. Which would tell me that in the middle is probably not a bad place to go. Can't really use any other angles. 2.4 uphill here versus 2 here. So I might just take a little bit off and add a dab more power just to make sure we get it there. My worry is that this is going to turn early and miss under the hole. I don't think it can turn that much in this distance. So I'm now sort of thinking we might miss it this side. Just going to bring it in a little bit. So what did we say? We said 9.6. I'm probably going to hit this 9.8 just for that, maybe 9.7 just for that extra bit of uphill that we're going up. 9, this is 10.5, so halfway between there is 9.75. And in she goes. So we'll do one more. I've got to stop after that. See how far we can bash this up there. I don't really think there's any benefit as in doing a really long one here. Let's go for another downhill up. Not sure we can be that specific, but 88, what's that, 6, 7 uphill, 95, 4 wind, 99. Don't want to go long here and go in the fringe. 8, 7, 95, 99. Stop. Stop! Didn't mean for it to come back that much. Okay. So this might be one of these ones that I don't think we can hit this 3.75. So this is probably a good one to consider. Where were we? 9.5, 4.4. Didn't say 4.5 a minute ago. Okay. Uh, 9.6, 4.4. So we've got 3.8, so we're right on the edge of this where the dot speed starts overtaking the pace maths. So we're going to have to bear that in mind with this break, that we might want to be adding more than the sheet is telling us. just for these 3.8s and below, 3.7s and below. So pin out, move this. So I might bring some feel into this as well. Good news is we've got a nice channel and we've got pretty consistent dots. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 6, Mississippi 7, Mississippi 8. So we got some 6, 7s and 8s. I think I counted slowly there, so I'm going to redo it. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6, Mississippi 7. It was pretty good. So we got a 6 and loads of 8s. So we'd normally set this up at sort of 7.5, 7.75, but I'm going to set it up as 7s to start with because I know it's going to break more than that because we're tapping it. So we go 7s and 14, gives us an 80% break. So it knows, this is what's so clever about Lion's maths, 80% break is an awful lot for a 9-foot putt. It knows that we're hitting it slowly. How? I don't know, but it does. So we need to find 80% here. So I'm going to sort of move it a bit more than halfway across to the line. Hold to there would be, yeah, I feel that's about right. So now we start to look at it. We have to remember here when we're looking at it, this ball is going to be dribbling, right? This looks like quite a lot of break for these speed of dots. And this is why I know my mind's quite sort of in the zone at the moment, because natural instinct, if I wasn't using a spreadsheet here and I was in eTour trying to hit this by feel, I'd be thinking that this was too much break because the dots aren't moving that quickly and we've aimed quite a lot outside, but we're tapping it. 3.8 is a really sort of, it's not dead slow pace, but it's not going to have much oomph to it. So my feeling is that at 3.8 it's either correct or it's not enough. What we have to do now is find the answer of which one of those two things it is. Again, I want to come in from this side, not this side. So if my hunch is that we haven't quite allowed for enough, I'll definitely do it because I want to approach from here, not from here. So another putt we'd love to hold, but you know, in tournament play, if you miss this, you blame the shot that you hit in, not the putt. My hunch says it's not enough, so I'm going to move it out a bit. And I've moved it out quite severely. I still think there's a chance this misses on this side, but I can't really bring myself to aim it any more than that. That's not 90%. What did we say? 80%. This isn't, that would be about 90% if that line was there. But we're sort of at 87%. I'm just going to go a little bit more. And then hit it. So this is 3.75. We're just going to hit it a little bit more. Gut instinct was right. I'm actually really pleased to miss that because I think it tells the story perfectly. So we've used the dots, we've added some more, and we still missed it on the other side. I mean, it nearly crawled in the side door. So it just shows you again that that those heavy downhill, short breaking putts need a little bit more than the sheet says. I'm going to hit one more putt. This should be quite chewy. So this is the typical one. You've got the distance right. You've missed the ding left and you've ended up leaving it over here. So we've got 9.9, 1.4 downhill. So we're going to have a similar situation to the last one. .7 is our pace. Now we've got the old cross box thing here, so first of all I just want to see which ones are moving quicker. Very similar. So I'm going to use this box because we're going to be using more of that box because we're going to be crossing straight away into this. Okay, so Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, Mississippi 4, Mississippi 5. 3s, 4s and 5s. Mississippi 1. So we've got 3s, 4s and 5s. The 3 is just past 3. One more time. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3. I feel like using this dot might be quite a good thing. So I'm going to go sort of 3.3, 3.4, even though we've got some 5s. I might be overthinking it now because this isn't as far downhill. In fact, by the time we've aimed, yeah, it's still a little bit downhill. If it was going uphill, we're then hitting it quite hard. Or we'd have to add some pace. So let's do it. We're saying 3.3, 6.6. See what she says. 16.4 break, 137. So we're not. So that's 150. We know that 100 and that 50 that we've always got. So somewhere about there is if we're at 3.3. Now we know that we've over-accounted these dots at this point. So the question is now for us, is this a good over-accounting or a bad over-accounting? It's still downhill. We're going 1.4. We've only got 0.2 here, but it will be turning because it's still going downhill. It will still turn into its 1 point whatever it was downhill in total. So I'm not worried about pace here. I'm happy with our 6.6. But that's also quite slow for a 10.5 foot putt. The other angle is useless to us because we're in the way of it. So this is another putt where, you know, it's a bad wedge. It wouldn't be a bad putt if we miss it. It's quite difficult not having the other side. It's going to turn pretty quickly at 6 feet. I'm going to hit it again. So we've gone 3.3 dots, and we know there's some 5. So we've accounted for quite a lot extra. That's a pretty big break for 6.6. But I'd rather again come in this side than where we did. It was a classic example, the last part of why we want to over allow, because you could see that we were so close to holding it. But if we'd been wrong on the other side, it would have gone in 100% because there's so much room for it to go in. And it only didn't go in because we under allowed it, not over allowed it. So I'm sort of tempted to add a bit extra, but I'm not going to. 6.6. Halfway between there is 6.75. I mean, it's a really good example again. I think what killed us there is if we'd hit that a little bit harder for the downhill, I think it would have gone past on the right edge or crawled in the back door. We just slightly overread it, if we're honest. It was nice dead weight, and it would have dropped if we just underread it slightly. But it was a really difficult putt. We got most of it right, and again, if you hit that putt 20 times, it's going to drop half the time, I'd say. So, you know, a bit annoying to finish with two very close putts, but all the putts we did, I think we hit 5 or 6 in total, that either went in or they were dead close. So I hope that's of some use to some of you. I'm going to call it quits for tonight. We can do a follow-up video, but I hope it sort of explains the basics of that process. So be well, and hope that helps, and talk soon.